I now call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Education to order. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. We will move to board priorities, mission, and vision statement. Director Potts,
The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. Direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you very much. Director Gordon, do you mind reading the mission and vision statement?
Enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. That's the mission statement. Vision statement is education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Superintendent Snackloff, do you mind reading us the goals?
Goal number two, to continue relationship building between the board and superintendent in the areas of trust and communication.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And just for the record, I want you to know that President Gossip is with us. However, he's on Zoom listening to us, so he'll be able to chime in as needed. Superintendent Snackloff, recognition.
We have no recognitions tonight, but we do have a presentation. We have Shani Ford here with us. She serves many roles in the Davenport Community School District, one of them being out of school time and out of school time opportunities. And she heads up a wonderful opportunity that some of our students get an opportunity to do. And it's visiting Wildwood Hills Ranch in Des Moines. And every year she works with Jenny Holupnik from 180 to help make sure that this happens. And so, Shani, I'll turn this over to you. You brought some friends with you today, which is fantastic. So, first of all, thank you guys for being here today. We're always excited to have students and parents come and sit with us. So just remember, this is just a conversation with us. All right, so don't be nervous and And let's just have a talk about what Wildwood was like. And it looks like you even have some cheat notes. Very prepared. So again, thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to just having a conversation with you tonight. Shani, thank you.
Thank you, TJ. So I have friends here tonight that came with me, and we'll start our presentation in a minute in regard to what that looks like. But I'm going to have them go down the line and introduce themselves. So you just push the little button.
My name is Charlie Sampson, and I go to Jefferson Elementary School.
So you got to hear from two of the over 80 students that we've sent over the last 2 years. And I think this continued commitment and partnership with Camp Wildwood is just going to grow every single year. We've been able to increase our slots every year, and it's our intent to keep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Director Gordon.
Is it just kids from Davenport schools? Do other schools in the area send students as well? Do you guys stay in cabins with other kids? How does that all work?
I'll answer part of it. So part of it is neighboring schools send students as well, and actually they all use JB. We meet here at JB Young, and Wildwood brings in the school buses to send all the kids. We send the largest number of students within the two-state area, actually Iowa and Illinois, to camp.
Yes, we do in fact stay in cabins. There are girls and boys cabins. There was in fact other people from my school there, so yeah, I did in fact stay in a cabin with some people that I knew.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much, Shani, for your presentation, and thank you all for coming and speaking to us, and we're glad you had a good time.
Thank you so much for having us.
No problem. Any board reports? Anyone have any board reports? President Gosa? President Gosa, are you there? He's not responding at all, but I do know that
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear none of the presentation, so I don't have any questions or anything. But thank you, Shani, for all your hard work and everything you do for the district.
she's exited the building.
Okay.
Thank you. You have any board reports?
Done at this time.
Thank you. Well, one board report that I have, and I know President Gosa participated in as well on Friday. There was a Zoom call from the topic was racism. The topic was racism, and it was a nice presentation. I didn't get everything out of it that I was looking forward to, but for the most part, it was racism in the school buildings and different forms of racism and different things that we can do to kind of get it out in the open. I guess the message that I left with is if it's on your mind, bring it up and talk to the person about it. So it was pretty good. Now we'll move right on to open forum. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues and concerns. Individuals who want to speak, please fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The form is available in hard copy and in person attendees or on the school board page of the district website. For those who want to participate virtually, virtual participants must email their request to Brenda T. at tbrand@davenportschools.org by 3 p.m. on the day of the board meeting. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it's not published as an agenda item. Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits actions on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set forth the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. To participate virtually, call 1-312-626-6799 and enter the meeting ID 923-4103-7778 with the passcode of 56821. I do have 2 open forums, and we'll each be given 2 minutes. If you could, when you approach the podium, please give your name and your address. I have Jamie Cook and Jacqueline Cook. Okay, either one of you.
Can you hear me now? All right. It's Jacqueline Cook, 11624 110th Avenue. I'm here about I think it was a Halo monitoring system. I think that's the name of it. Ms. Beck had said something. She had raised some concerns about privacy with the use of keywords. I share those concerns. It was said that the alerted staff will not receive any recordings, but that doesn't mean that it's not recording. That, it just means that the person receiving the alert isn't getting the recordings. If the system can be alerted by using keywords, that tells me it's listening in all the time, and to me, that's a huge invasion of privacy in what should be the most private room of any building. I agree with Mr. Gosa. We don't want students hanging out in the bathroom, but if you ask any female here, almost all of them will tell you they have sought the privacy of the bathroom to work through or help someone work through social or emotional difficulties. If that privacy is removed, the opportunity for collaborative problem solving and a coping mechanism will be stolen. Another concern with the use of keywords is playful banter resulting in disciplinary action. It was stated that this system can It can tell the context, decipher context. Oh my goodness. But we can assume that's solely linguistic context. We've all heard the saying that 90% of communication is nonverbal. Well, I saw a study and it said that 7% of communication is words. That's it, only 7%. So that tells me that the use of keywords in linguistic context would be hypersensitive and inaccurate. But I do have a few questions. One of them is what information is stored in the cloud storage? If these things are recorded and what have you, will that be stored there? How long will that information be saved? Who can access stored information within the district and third party? If solely using the decimal system and no language monitoring, will that reduce the amount of storage required, thus reducing the cost? And the proposal was only for a portion of the bathrooms at more than $50,000. What would the additional cost be to include all restrooms? And what is the increase in the biannual cost? Thank you. Do what? Oh, sure.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
All right, Jamie Cook, 11624 110th Avenue, Davenport, Iowa. I requested an additional minute, 30 seconds if I could, just to flesh everything out. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. I know some of y'all have been educators for a long time. I guarantee you're probably familiar with this book, The Giver. I was actually the last class when I went to school in 6th grade before this was taken off of the policy or whatever and put on the banned book list. It was banned in 1990 all the way up until 2009. First subject covering infanticide and euthanasia. However, when put into context of the dystopian society the novel outlines, it describes a world where everyone is equal, safe, and happy, or so they think. Everyone has exactly the same as everyone else and have productive roles in their society. Those that are useful but unpersonable are isolated to night jobs during curfew for most other citizens. Those that are not or will never be or are no longer useful to society are released. The reader soon finds out through following the main character, Jonah, is the society is full of monitoring and control and repression. It slowly fleshes out that the one man, the giver, is the only member that remembers the life before, the beauty, the joy, the reward, and the ugly of the real world. And with that is given special privileges. The plot finally unfolds in their world. Equality is actually equity. Safety is actually enslavement. Happiness is ignorance. And the giver is the 1% that gets to live his life in real freedom. Now, what's this really come down to? I understand that the vandalism needs to stop, and safety is of the utmost importance. However, the Halo system is as presented outside of fights and vaping. The keyword feature that supposedly lacks audio recording, I see quickly turning into white noise. The productive citizen portion, I agree, is the goal of raising the next generation and the responsibility as society as a whole. However, your role as the community school district is education, math, reading, language arts, economics, history, grading tests, assignments turned in on time, etc. It is the parents, friends, families, neighbors' job to ensure that our children fit into society, not the schools, not the teachers' unions, not stakeholders. So yes, I am very concerned when a member of the policy committee is so reluctant to ensure the highest quality education environment, especially when that very thing was denied to some of our students that questioned the district's authority last year, but instead is more focused on molding them into productive citizens, not through history, science, social studies, but through bringing in stakeholders so they can, quote, express unquote. Basically, so that they can express what the stakeholders see as a productive citizen. I have a problem with that. I really think that's what's causing a vast majority of our problems in society. That's all I got.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Cook. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Madam Vice President,
Director Beck?
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Beck and second by Director Gordon. Is there any discussion? call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
President Gosa,
Yes.
Director Klein-Drome,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion passed. May I have a motion for the approval of bills?
Madam Chairwoman,
Director Poston,
move the board approve the following resolution. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the treasurer, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of July 2022 to August 2nd, 2022, noting voided check number 379915, wrong vendor.
may I have a second?
Second.
Been moved by Director Poston, second by Director Klein-Drome. Is there any discussion? Seeing as none, I'll call for the vote. Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Klein-Drome,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
President Gosa, President Gosa,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion passed. Superintendent's report,
None at this time.
committee reports. Superintendent Sneckhoff, could you do the data wall report?
Yes, we we met and we reviewed what types of additions to the boardroom would the data wall team recommend, and we're bringing that forward to the school board and some of the upcoming meetings. This space can definitely be enhanced. We host half of our district in here at a time with our leaders and our teachers to do professional development. So the added visual space would be a beneficial part for that. And so also our cabinet is working on the data points that we can highlight. And the plan would be to utilize those screens to either project additional spaces or additional spots for us to see, but also to put focus areas up there, but also to utilize pictures, visualizations to share celebrations of those data points as well. So some really good conversations coming from the data wall committee.
Finance committee,
We have our monthly meeting next week.
legislative advocacy. Legislative advocacy. Karen.
So we met. We've worked on our priorities. Those priorities are coming forward. We're also beginning to plan out when we're going to visit our local city council meetings, and we're adding again the board of supervisors to that. We're also beginning to plan our meet and greets with our legislators to share our priorities. We also, over the course of last week, during SAI, we met, the UEN met with the UEN leaders and began to discuss strategy coming into the upcoming session.
Thank you for that. Long range planning.
We met last Friday. We reviewed the first draft of the community survey. And as you received an email on the 29th from Josh, it laid out what that survey is looking like. It also laid out the timeline that we're looking at for rolling out more information on our long-range facility plan. We have our two public meetings coming up. One is the 11th, which is this Thursday.
Thank you for that. Policy committee.
We have our mission and vision statement on the agenda for tonight, And then regular monthly meeting is on Wednesday of this week.
Director Beck, can you also do ILSIAC? ILSIAC? Okay, thank you. Now we move to action items. May I have a motion on item number 10.01, Recover Health and Iowa Nursing Contract?
Madam Vice President,
Director Beck?
I move the board approve the contract with Recover Health of Iowa for the fiscal year 2022-23 at $59.64 as an hourly rate to be billed monthly in order to provide nursing services that are outlined in a student's IEP.
Thank you. May I have a second? Been moved by Director Beck and second by Director Potts. Is there any discussion? Seeing as none, I call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Gordon, are you in a position that you can vote on item number 10.01, Recovery Health and Iowa Nursing Contract?
Yes, my vote is yes.
Your vote? Thank you, and mine is yes as well. Motion passed. Moving on to item number 10.02, Unity Point at Home Nursing Contract, Student 1. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Potts?
I move the board approve the contract with Unity Point at-home nursing for the fiscal year 2022-23 at $60 as an hourly rate to be billed monthly in order to provide nursing services that are outlined in the student's individual educational program.
Thank you very much. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Director Potts and second by Director Klein-Jerome. Any discussion? Seeing as none, I'll call for the vote. Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yeah. Yes.
President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion passed. Moving on to item 10.03, Uni Point at Home Nursing Contract for Student Number 2. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Director Potts?
I move that the board approve the contract with Unity Point at-home nursing for the fiscal year 2022-2023 at $60 as an hourly rate to be billed monthly in order to provide nursing services that are outlined in Student 2's individual educational program.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Director Potts and second by Director Klein-Jerome. Is there any discussion? Seeing as none, I'll call for the vote. Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion passed. Moving on to 10.04, Michelle's Vocational Placement Contract. May I have a motion?
Madam Chairwoman,
Director Gordon?
I move that the board approve the contract with Michelle's Vocational Placement LLC MVP for the fiscal year 2022-2023 for $43,103.50 in order to provide job development and coaching that supports our students within Project Search.
Thank you very much. May I have a second?
Second.
Director Potts? It's been properly moved and second. Director Gordon made the motion. Director Potts seconded. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Gordon?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
President Gosa,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Poston.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion passes. Moving on to item 10.05, building automotive upgrade.
Madam Chairwoman,
Director Poston.
move the board approve the contracts for the train controls upgrades for Central High, North High, and West High schools for $793,391.
Thank you very much. May I get a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved by Director Poston and second by Director Klein Jerome. Is there any discussion? Seeing as none, we'll call for the vote. Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
President Gosa,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion passes. Item number 10.06, IASB legislative priorities. May I have a motion?
Madam President, Vice
Director
President.
Beck,
I move the board submit the following legislative priorities to the Iowa Association of School Boards: supplemental state aid, early literacy, and I believe we have to make a decision on the other two. Oh, okay. I am going to say teacher recruitment and licensure and school funding policy. Those are the next two in the list.
I have a second. It's been moved by Director Beck, second by Director Potts. Is there any discussion?
President, I would like to change the teacher recruitment and licensure to the preschool.
I'm sorry?
I would like to withdraw the teacher recruitment and licensure and instead substitute preschool in there. So we would continue with school funding policy, but then we had three that were in a tie on this. I would like to see it be school funding policy and preschool.
That's number 4. Okay, teacher recruitment and preschool. Is any discussion on that? Director Gordon?
I understand the importance of preschool as a priority. However, if we don't have teachers, then we can't have preschool. I understand the necessity of preschool as a priority. However, if we don't have enough teachers, then we can't have preschools. We can't have enough classrooms and serve everyone that needs served if we don't have the teachers. So I think we should keep teacher recruitment and licensure in the top 4.
Director Beck?
This is basically just the legislative priorities, what we want them to advocate for next year, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'll come back to the rest of my thought. Thank you.
Any additional discussion?
State aid, early literacy. A concern I have with the preschool and not being a priority is the funding is kind of backwards, and so we're not forward funding our preschools. I think that's where we need to get a focus. We need to get our preschools funded, get staff, get students, instead of waiting for the students to come and then we get the funding after the fact. I still think that the preschools should be a big priority.
President Gosa, did you have anything to add?
I can see both sides of that. I'm trying to figure out, Director Klein Jerome, did she make a motion to amend it to add or to substitute that, or are you just polling the board right now to see where they're at with that?
I threw it out there as a discussion, but I
Okay.
can make it.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I see both sides of it. Obviously, yeah, we have to have the teachers there. It's like if we focus on the preschool part of it, because everything is early literacy and things like that, and we've been touting on that for a while and doing a lot of things towards that. So I see that point of it, and at the same time, I see the point that we have to have teachers able to teach and things like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the teacher recruitment stuff is that, and don't quote me wrong, but is that like lowering the standards of what it entails to become a teacher so that more people are eligible for it?
Director Beck?
So I pulled up what the IASB had as their legislative resolutions. So these are their explanations behind what they would lobby for under each of these categories. The one for preschool simply says supports continued funding to ensure that all 4 and 5-year-olds have access to the statewide voluntary preschool program, supports an increase in funding from the current weighting of 0.5 to 1.0 full-time equivalent to increase the ability of districts to provide services such as full-day programming and transportation. And then districts should be given maximum flexibility to assign costs to the program. The teacher recruitment and licensure one, actually, that was my concern as well, Director Gosa, but the IASB says specifically supports additional tools to attract individuals to the teaching profession, and their bullet points are alternative teacher licensure upon completion of research-based teaching pedagogy training in addition to content knowledge in a curricular area, pathways for individuals with non-traditional or international educational backgrounds to meet licensure qualifications, reciprocity agreements with other states with high-quality education programs to increase diversity amongst our certified teachers and administrators, expansion of programs such as Teach Iowa Scholar, Troops to Teachers, Teacher Intern Program, programs designed to recruit and retain teachers that will better match the demographic makeup of our student population, and advocate for funding of loan forgiveness programs, grants, and stipends that will make education careers more attractive and affordable option. So the way I read that, their advocacy is not for lowering standards, but for allowing more alternatives such as licensing, automatic licensing of people with licenses in other states, a bigger pool, as Director Potts said. And the preschool one, as I interpret it, to get at Director Klein-Jerome's point, seems like they are not even going to be talking about when funding occurs. That's not sort of on their radar right now. So with that, I would support the teacher licensure one. I don't want to support lowering the standards, but it sounds like IASB does not want that either. So that's my personal opinion.
Director Poston?
If you look on the list, the priorities from last year: dropout at risk, mental health, teacher recruitment, school funding, supplemental aid. I don't agree with all of those. If you've got a good preschool program and you're working hard on early literacy, then there's some things that hopefully will go away, which would be dropout at risk, mental health. So I would move that we adopt the legislative platform of preschool, early literacy, school funding, and teacher recruitment. I will make that as an amendment.
I'll second that amendment.
Preschool, early literacy, school funding, and teacher recruitment.
Dan seconded.
Director Beck made the motion. Are you okay with the amendment?
I actually think that supplemental state aid is a huge issue right now because it's not keeping up with inflation. And I don't feel like we've been seeing a lot of movement with that. But the school foundation formula is also important. We have seen a little bit of movement with that. So I guess I would defer to somebody who knows a little bit more about how legislative advocacy works. If we've seen a little bit of movement in the school funding policy, is it worth making that more of a priority than supplemental state aid? I don't know.
Superintendent Schneckler?
As you're selecting these priorities, every other UEN in the state's going to select that one. Or ISB, supplemental state aid. It'll be at the top of everyone's list. I think it goes without being said that ISB is going to push for a higher supplemental state aid. So if you did choose to take that one off there, you will know it will be advocated for. They're constantly pushing for that. They're constantly pushing for the additional $5, $10 every year, the transportation formula. I think we just need to contemplate what that means if we take it off of ours. And if you're comfortable with that, I think the four the ones that are on the floor currently are very, very important, incredibly important. Teacher retention is extremely important. And look what happened last year when we asked our state to focus on it. We now have that teacher. They put a task force together, and we're the recipients of a $3.7 million grant that we're growing our own teachers. And guess what? Those teachers look like the students in our classrooms too, that we're entering into this agreement. So that's very powerful. The notion that our 4-year-olds funding could be pushed forward to 1.0, because that's what that says, that it would be fully funded, is incredibly powerful as well. So that would be my take on the supplemental state aid piece.
Thank
Maybe
you.
we can ask them for 5.
Thank you for that explanation. Director Poston, what was your fourth one? I'm sorry, preschool, early literacy, school funding, and
Preschool, early literacy, school funding, and teacher recruitment. And just to follow up with what TJ said too, on the supplemental state aid, we'll be up in Des Moines again lobbying with the legislators, and I think that's where you have more effect as far as approaching the supplemental state aid. When you're there one-on-one with the legislators, that's when you're going to make a difference.
Director Potts?
So if I hear you correctly, our not putting it on there is not going to change the course of the priorities of the Iowa School Board Association.
Correct.
I'm shocked.
Correct. I'm a guessing man that it probably will be the focus of everyone else.
Madam President, I call the previous question. I call the question.
Okay. And that is?
That means we go to the vote.
Okay.
That means no more changes.
Just so now,
Brenda's got her hand up.
Did you accept the change? Yes.
she did. Okay. So now the new motion on the table is to change the priorities to preschool, early literacy, school funding, and teacher recruitment. The motion was made by Director Poston, seconded by President Gosa. We'll call for the vote. Director Poston?
Yes.
President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Kleindrom,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion passed with the amendments that were made. Item number 10.02, RSAI legislation priorities. May I have a motion?
Madam Vice President,
Director Beck,
I move the legislative priorities for rural school advocates of Iowa be submitted as presented.
Second.
properly moved by Director Beck and second by Director Poston. Is there any discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
President Gosa,
Yes.
Director Kleindrom,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Gordon.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion passed. Item number 10.08, UEN legislative priorities. May I have a motion?
Madam Vice President,
Director Beck,
I move the legislative priorities for Urban Education Network be submitted as presented.
a second.
Second.
Well, it was a tie, but I think Director Potts was probably louder. Is there any discussion? Call for the vote. Director Beck,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
President Gosa,
Yes.
Director Kleindrom,
Yes.
Director Poston,
Yes.
Director Gordon,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Item number 10.09,
Madam Chairwoman,
Director Poston,
move the board approve the proposal from Tri-City Electric to purchase 22 Halo Smart Sensor 2C health, safety, and vape devices in the amount of $51,358.38.
may I have a second?
Second.
Been properly moved by Director Poston, second by Director Potts. Any discussion? Director Beck?
I actually had wanted to reiterate or iterate some of the questions that we heard tonight. If we could get answers on those, that would be very helpful. I don't know if there's been time to do that in the last little bit, but specifically, how much would it cost to cover all the bathrooms at once? I do realize why we're rolling out the few at a time to make sure they work. And then the other question about what information is stored and how long and where and who has access to that.
So I might be able to answer some of that. I believe the stored information is location, time, date, what the trigger was. It can be stored for up to a year. As far as who would have access to that, it would probably be Andy Nyrink, myself, somebody related to the security team, or an administrator that would have, a need for that information. I can't answer the cost. I know at one time we talked about the cost for all the high schools. I just didn't find it yet. Do you recall, Andy?
I don't recall the specific number. I don't recall what the specific number to do all the bathrooms in the high school is. One of the things that's going to affect that is it's a set cost per sensor, but it's how far you have to run wire. So it's going to affect, some would be more, some would be less. But we can get those numbers.
And the cost one, I'm fine waiting on that. But I do still have some concerns about the privacy issue using, keywords. I mean, I think about it with my Google Home device. I know it's listening all the time, and it does bother me a little bit. So I guess I wonder about the feasibility of perhaps doing a soft entry and using, not using that part of the system and just the chemical sensors, or, what measures we have in place for maintaining the privacy of our students. Again, that may be something that can't be answered right now. So.
I mean, that's the nice part about the system is it is adjustable. We're not going into this with like a set priority of things we exactly need to do, but I think we're kind of going about it with a soft start, not in every bathroom, not in every school. I mean, see how it works.
Okay.
If it feels like it's triggering all the time off of words that people talk about or just normally in conversation, I don't think we want to be chasing all of those down either. So it's something we're going to have to evaluate as time goes on.
Okay. And then my other question came up last week. I know there's an app that the people who have access to this information can have. And I guess I wonder about the privacy of that and how many people would be able to have that app that would notify when there's an issue, right? So I would assume Mr. Nyrank, obviously, and you, but every teacher in the school doesn't need that app. So I guess, do we have a plan in place for limiting that information and making sure that, it's not just everybody that has access to that?
My understanding last week that we talked about it was only the security people and the principal in the building. It is not teachers at all, is what
Correct.
we brought up last week.
Perfect.
That is correct.
Director Boston?
Do you want these installed by the start of the school year?
It would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen anymore. But ideally, that would have been
So the sooner we get on it, the better then.
correct.
Okay. Well, I understand what some of the concerns are on the privacy and everything, but I am totally fed up with having our bathrooms tore up. And the next time a bathroom gets tore up in a school building, my first recommendation is going to be that we're going to put porta potties in those hallways, and they can use porta potties if they want to tear up our bathrooms, because this is ridiculous. There's no way we should be putting up with that.
It's good enough for the bigs.
Director Gordon?
I have two questions. The first one is there a way for it to monitor just volume, like decibels, and not keywords, so that, fights and vandalism both are going to be a lot louder than people just conversationally speaking about who's so-and-so wants to fight, you know what I mean? Or other trigger things like that. Volume, I think, is going to be more important. Is that something that's possible?
I believe volume plays a factor in that, because if I walked in there and dropped this bottle of water, I don't think it would trigger an alarm. But if I slam my hand down on this desk really loud, it would trigger the alarm.
Right.
One of the things that I really liked from the presentation about this is you could just make it say one keyword, help. So if you're in the bathroom and something's bad is happening, you can make that keyword help. So that's the only word it picks up. And you can tell all the kids, if you're in the bathroom and something's happening, yell help. Okay. So, yes, it can be shut up just to the decibel levels. So we actually, when we watched the demonstration of this, it was actually sitting in the floor, and we got an opportunity to make noise around it. And Josh volunteered to vape around it, but we chose not to. Just kidding, Josh. So yes, all of those things, those features can be shut off. And if that's feedback that the board would like to start with, just loudness of it, and maybe piloting one key word to kind of accommodate the fears that people are having that their privacy is being infringed on. But some of the stories that we see and hear coming out of our bathroom, this isn't about picking up on people's conversations. It's about, being helped in a time of need. And that's the way we could set that up and approach it that way. So if this is something that we also start with volume and sensory, I think we absolutely can do that. So, great questions.
I had one other question. So if there's an app that is going to be on, I assume, phones, is that so are school security personnel going to be expected to download an app that they have to use for work on their personal phones? Is administration in the buildings expected to do that? How does that work? What does that look like?
I believe it would be.
So inside of our district, we have it set up to where it can go to computers if people so choose to put that on their phone if they have access. We have good practice in this right now because we have the P3 app inside of our district, and so we have an opportunity to practice that, and so that can come solely to administration who can respond immediately. And I believe our same protocols would follow for P3 as it would for this. So it would be a security tip that would go directly to our officers.
Isn't it just a notification that's coming? It's not a printout saying the following words were said, but rather it's a notification of a concern there. And I think that's part of what people were getting concerned about. Who will see this? It's more of the notification that we get that something has happened in a location. So that's what's going to send folks to that location, not a printout of or transcript of what was going on there.
I would support the word help being put in there because anybody in there, if there's something going on and they can say that and somebody get there, I think that is worthwhile.
Did you have anything to add, President Golson?
Yes. Did you get an answer for me on when they set this up, they can do junction boxes while they're running the lines? So if we want to add something later, it's less of a cost.
Yes, they can do that for sure.
Is that included in this price?
I believe it is, but I think it all depends on where they're coming from. But yes, it's included in the price.
Because if we do it, I would rather just have that pre-done ahead of time because they're already running the wire. So it's very easy to add other units to it than pull more wire.
I agree.
That was all I had.
Any additional discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Caution?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion passed. Item number 10.10. Director Beck?
I move that the board approve the following policies: 203, 213, 503.04.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as none, we'll call for the vote. Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
President Gosa? President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Klein-Jerome?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Gordon?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion passed. Item number, we'll jump down to the discussion item for 11.01 and then come back up and vote for 10.11 after the discussion. Is that okay? Okay, discussion item 11.01.
Okay, so the superintendent and board members worked with TAG to develop a new mission statement, and we discussed it last week. So our newest or final draft is listed before you. Along with that, TAG used all of our input to come up with 3 guiding principles. And so the idea is that we will adopt the new mission statement along with these guiding principles, and then figure out what to do about policy 100, which is the district philosophy that typically includes the mission statement and a vision statement. So basically, the idea here with this discussion part is to see if there's anything else that people have questions or concerns about regarding the mission statement and the guiding principles. And then if not, how to go about with revising policy 100 so that it is both legally compliant and it fits. It's much more readable and expands this into sort of the vision part of how the district is going to accomplish the mission statement.
Okay, item 11.01, open for discussion.
Mm-hmm. So I'd entertain any comments on the mission statement and guiding principles as they've been presented to us. And then if not, I'd like to hear some thoughts about how to go about adjusting policy 100, which is the district philosophy, so that it matches what we're doing. Director Kleinger.
Not to push this back on TAG, but you did a really good job on our mission statement. And you know what all of our input was. So perhaps you could look at the district philosophy and wordsmith in what we've already sat in on a workshop coming up with these ideas. Might be a great way to just take some of our ideas, look at this. Thank you.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
So my question then is, we had talked as a policy committee about the bullet pointed statements, the model we saw in some other districts, which was some districts had like belief statements, right? Instead of a wordy philosophy like this that had the mission, the vision or guiding principles, and then a number of statements like, we believe that all students can succeed. We believe that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Others were expectations for what students should be able to do when they graduate from our district. Students should be, I don't know, I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but for what we want our students to be able to do when we award that diploma. So I guess I would ask if that would be a better model for district philosophy than something sort of written out in prose like this, and I'd ask for feedback on that. Go ahead, Director Poston.
Well, I think the philosophy that's there now is just way too wordy. I like what the new mission statement guiding principles lays out, and I think it does a good summary of what what philosophy is. So I don't know if we need much more than just the mission statement and the guiding principles. But I would be in favor of TAG taking a look at it and seeing if there's some things that we need to insert there.
Director Potts is saying, okay, and what Kent said. Director Gordon?
I agree with what Ken said. I don't have any additional. I agree with what Kent said. I don't have any additional feedback right this minute.
Director Gosa?
I don't have any additional feedback either.
Director Hayes?
As long as Mike is in agreement with taking it and maybe works making it, I'm okay with it. Okay, sounds like it's okay. He's nodding.
Okay. So then so what I'm hearing, just to confirm, is we will adopt the mission and guiding principles as written, and those will then henceforth be our new mission statement and guiding principles. And then the policy committee, I'm guessing, can work with TAG to format some of our other workshop information into a philosophy statement if that seems appropriate. And just bring it to us. Yeah. Okay. Fine with me. All right. It's fine with TAG. Okay. I figured I should probably ask. All right.
Okay, so going back to item 10.11, it would just be the mission statement, and we will approve the guiding principles at a later date once we get that information back. So if somebody would like to make that a motion,
Madam President,
Director Potts?
I move the board approve the mission statement and guiding principles as presented. The wording will be incorporated into policy 100 when the district philosophy is reviewed and or revised.
Second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion to the motion? Seeing as none, we'll call for the vote. Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Kleindron?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
President Gosa?
Yes.
Director Poston?
Yes.
Director Kleindron? Or I'm sorry, Director Gordon.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion passed. Moving to item 11.02. Superintendent Sneckler?
As stated in previous board reports, we believe it's time to move forward with the district to hire Bray Architects to begin to look at adding a practice gym and a weight room and a wrestling room onto the property. The need for this has been there for many years. It's been pushed back. This does take into the effect that this does take into the effect that we are currently partnered with the YMCA, and that contract runs out 2029, and this allows us the flexibility and freedom to keep that partnership and also give the appropriate amount of practice space for our students at West High School. At West High School, also the gym, the weight room, and the wrestling room are in the currently located in the basement of the high school and have been since the start of that school. Our students, the way that our activities are shaping up, and even during the day for PE classes, that a lot of them are running through our programming through the weight room, and their students at West are in desperate need of this. And so right now we'd entertain any questions. Obviously, this is just the start of the projects to allow us to start working with Bray. But Josh, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just wanted to emphasize that besides practice, it's utilized throughout the day for PE and programming for the school day as well. The fee of 6% for architectural services is pretty common. It's a common fee for these type of things. So I've done some research, looked around the area, found other projects similar to this that this falls right in line with the area.
Would we repurpose?
Karen's question was, would we repurpose the dungeon in the basement? And I can easily see that be utilized as storage.
Okay. Like we're not putting people back down there. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
I think Willie said he'd like to have his office down there. Sorry, Dan. We would look to make that more of a storage area.
Director Caution.
Well, first I want to preface my comments by saying that this is sorely needed at West. It'll enable it to be on the same level as what we have at North and Central. But I do have some concerns. Again, I have a problem with our arrangement with the Y. Again, TJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but all of that building was paid by our taxpayers. There was no money put into that from the Y. To me, it looks like this is a cash cow for the Y. They're also supposed to be taking care of maintenance, and from what I'm hearing, that's not happening. A lot of the rims and baskets and everything are in poor repair, and that was supposed to be taken care of by the Y. So when I look at this, so you look at $11 million project, or you look at just taking over what's there now and then building the weight room and building the wrestling room, I think could be done for a lot less money. Now, the argument could be that the Y is there to help serve the community, and I'm not going to argue that. But I just feel that the arrangement we have, both at West and at North, is not in the best interest of Davenport schools. And I think we need to take a look at, can we make better use of our taxpayers' dollars and look at how the Y is still involved, with the building.
Director Beck.
Along those lines, I guess I'm wondering what the history of the partnership with the Y is, because I don't know what the financial arrangement is, because if it is something that we as a district put money into, but the Y didn't, I'm wondering I'm wondering what our options are for using the space that's already built rather than building new space, right? But I don't know what the partnership is and how it's set up and what benefits we get from it versus that. So I guess I'd be interested to know a little bit more about the history of that relationship and how it works now.
Well, if you look at the current setup at North was added to because of the current situation. So there's one gymnasium at Davenport North and a 2-gym competition gym was added to there. So the issues that they have in terms of their membership with the Y are not the same. So the big benefit from North is the pool. So they, in dealing with the sharing of those facilities, they have worked that out. At Davenport West, it's slightly different. So there are 2 full gyms at Davenport at the West Y. What is needed is all the West YMCA to run just like the North YMCA to serve the community like Kent was talking about. There's an additional gym is needed. That will provide Davenport schools with Davenport West with the exact same thing that is currently seated at North. I would say maybe a slightly different because North's competition gym is the 2 gymnasium, and I call it the old Wildcat Den. The smaller gym is still in service. So this, I believe our contract is up in 2029. I believe it is, and the YMCA currently serves 3,500 people out of that YMCA. I would say the relationship between those at West and at that YMCA have been strained for that reason. Both programs need those gymnasiums to work. So And I would say if the YMCA partnership wasn't there, I would still say that this would be the need of Davenport West High School. So they would have 3 gym practice and I'll say PE gymnasiums. Their weight room and wrestling room would be out of the basement. I am going to dig into the exact things that Kent has written down, just to ensure that both sides are meeting and following the contract as stipulated, because we want to make sure that we're maximizing, just like Director Poshin was saying, maximizing that relationship and getting everything out of it that we said. When that relationship started, the pool was shared and those gym spaces were shared. We're currently not sharing the pool with the Y. The gym sharing has been, I would say, a tumultuous topic, and it is now to the point where if there is a disagreement between the 2 entities, it's written into the contract that it will be solved by the superintendent and the CEO of the YMCA. So right now, that's where that relationship stands, and that's why we feel this is the best way to move forward.
Any additional discussion, Director Poston?
Just another point too. If I was told that a lot of the membership is actually West High students. So again, the school district put up the building. It's being poorly maintained. Why do our students at West High have to pay a Y membership? I mean, this is a school district building. And to me, it just is not a good arrangement.
Did you have anything more to add, President Gosa?
Actually, Director Poshin kind of hit on what I was going to say. I don't know how the whole thing came about. I think it's weird that North and West had to partner with the Y to get pools, but Central didn't. But I do also think that it is a disservice that our students have to get memberships to go to those Ys, because it's the same way at North. And a Y membership, it was cheaper for me to get my kid a membership at a gym than to go to the Y right by his school that he could literally walk out of school and go to. So I don't want to be in breach of contract or nothing. I believe the way it's worded, the superintendent has to bring those concerns. So I don't really want to publicly throw that out there, but definitely I think there are some things that need to be addressed. But as far as the facility and everything, the item that we're discussing, I think that's a huge thing. It's about time that some stuff started getting spread around instead of everything at Central. We do have other high schools too. So I am glad that they want to do some things at West High School. I think they greatly need that and to get them out of the basement. So I would wholeheartedly support that.
Director Poston?
And my concern when bringing this up is I don't want to prolong this and delay it, because we were told at one of the meetings that this possibly could all be completed by fall of 2024. And so, I definitely want to see something happen and in place by 2024, or no, 2023. And so I don't want to delay it, but I also look at, here's $11 million that we'll have to spend on the project, or by eliminating the Y, can we do the whole project for $2 million? And so as a board, I don't want us to be foolish on how we're spending the taxpayer dollars. And my other concern too, and after talking to Josh and Superintendent Snakecloth, as far as this fee of construction costs for the architects, and you look at it and you think, okay, 6%, okay, fine. But 6% of $11 million is $660,000. Okay. If that's the going rate, I guess that's the going rate, but this is not like you're building classrooms. This is just one big shell, very few dividing walls. So I don't know. To me, it still sounds really high. But again, just reiterating what I'm said before is let's just make sure we're being very wise on how we're spending the taxpayers' dollars.
Director Beck.
I know I've brought this up before. I think probably right after Mr. Josh got here, Mr. Amansky got here, was the surprising price of these architects, and that 5%, 6% was kind of the going rate. I did have a question though about the proposal. It says that there are direct owner expenses, the environmental analysis and abatement, boundary and or topographic survey, soil borings, and municipality, utility, and other impact fees. Does that mean we are responsible for those? Those are not something that the architects would do?
Yes, and they're only done if they're needed. So we wouldn't want that added in there as an additional cost on top of the other estimate. It would just inflate the architectural costs even more. So they separate out particular items, knowing that I can call a contractor down the road and have them do that for me without having to pay an architect to tell them to do it, basically.
Okay. So would this come then to us as a change fee, or would it be a separate contract because it would be something that somebody identified that we needed to?
I think it would be a separate contract. I don't think it would be a change order.
Okay.
Director Parson.
One more thing, and then I'll shut up. Say we get to 2029, the Y is that lost a lot of membership, and they decide they don't want to be involved with that anymore. So we build this new gym, and now we'll have an additional 2 more gyms. I'm sure we will make good use of it, but then hindsight's always 2020. Did we need to spend that $11 million?
Director Gordon.
For the weight room, is that just to build an additional weight room, or does that cost include the equipment that needs to go into the weight room?
That would be just to build the weight room. I don't believe it includes equipment.
Because gym equipment's real expensive.
Yeah, I think we have an estimate.
In terms of our equipment, the equipment we have down there is actually working really well for our students. Is that accurate? And we've already purchased the additional equipment, I think it was a year ago. Is that accurate, Willie?
No, that is actually a part of that Friday update that I sent about a month or so ago, talking about us beginning to bid that do an RFP for equipment at all 3 high schools, because we're coming to a point where all 3 high schools are going to need equipment. So regardless of building, we have the equipment need that's out there for all 3 high schools.
And the equipment that they're currently utilizing would just be moved up.
And then another thing I was thinking, and this is just kind of spitballing ideas, kind of piggybacking off the things that Kent was saying. If we were able to utilize the Y space, continuing the partnership with them, but in order to maybe not have to spend all this money, could we look at the way that gym and weight classes are scheduled and maybe work out something where like Tuesday, Thursdays, gym classes can use the weight room and the gym, and Monday, Wednesdays, the Y people get it full day or certain hours of the day or something, just to make it work out better for the district so that we're getting our money's worth out of what we put into that partnership, if that wasn't an equal initial investment.
Anyone else have anything more to add? Superintendent Snecker.
Madam Vice President.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, Josh, if we go through this project and everything and with the architect costs, we will own the prints, right? It's not going to be that the architect owns the prints, and if we want to do something later on, we have to pay them again for the prints for our project?
That is correct. I love that question.
Well, because in past practice, we've never owned them, so I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. And then on the other thing, with the architect fees being 6%, it's like that all over, and the architects actually have to figure out all the structural, the load bearing, what materials can and cannot be used. They have to put up the schedule of piping, duct work, air handling units, and have to factor all that stuff in. So, I mean, there is quite a bit of work there. That's just, I do have a construction background, so they're my least favorite people on the job site, because they think everything looks great on a flat piece of paper, but they do a good job at what they do.
Thank you. Yeah, it also includes the engineering services too. So you're right about the piping and HVAC stuff.
Anyone else? Okay, if there's more information that you're needing on this, please see Superintendent Schneckloff and maybe get with he and Josh so you can get all the information that you need in order to make an informed decision when it's time to vote on this. Okay, moving on to purchase of online learning platform. Ingenuity.
So the Davenport schools, we put together off the feedback that the school board has given us, some criteria for accessing online. Our students are applying, and we feel that there is still a need for some online services in Davenport. We went from, I would say, 1,100 students last year to now we're under 100. Is that no? Just slightly. Well, I'll turn it over to you in just a second, Mr. Driscoll and Courtney. So this is a continuation of the contract from last year, where we are recommending that we utilize the AEA and their teaching staff to provide this. So I'll turn it over to Ben and Courtney to kind of talk through the talking points.
So, online learning will have a home in through Mid-City. It will be supervised by the Mid-City principal. So we have a person and administrator overseeing the whole program within the schools. That doesn't mean that the students are now Mid-City students, but it's the a centralized point. Currently, we have, and this is as of an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, we have 11 students total, K through 5, that have requested to be online. We have 17 between 6th and 8th grade. And then we have 86 high school students for 114, but pretty close, Superintendent Schneckloff. So we're at 114 right now. I know that one question that the board has had in the past is if it is not an effective platform. So we did create a criteria through a lot of conversation with principals and our online learning coordinators and the student support liaisons that were supporting them. And so the established criteria was passing all your online learning classes that you've taken in the past and maintaining attendance above that 90% online attendance. If any student did not meet that criteria, then they were told that you have not met the criteria established by the school district, and then there was an appeal process where they could then appeal. That was coordinated by that Mid-City Principal Seifert, and from there, she and a director or an ILD from the region, along with the homeschool building principal, would get on and read the rationale and consider it. I'll give you an example of one that might be considered. Maybe a student face-to-face 2 years ago actually got all D's and F's, and online learning, they got all B's and C's and 1D. So it was really a better platform for that student. Well, by our criteria alone, that student wouldn't qualify. So then when they appealed and said, actually, we're really making progress, then they would be considered. So we weren't so black and white that we just absolutely not, but it was a starting point, and that's how we ended at that 114. Any questions that would help?
Did we lose anybody like completely in this process of, saying, well, you didn't meet the attendance requirements or something like that. And then they just didn't bother to appeal, and they just,
Then they open enroll to a different school district altogether. Is that what you're
or
asking?
something like that. Yeah.
I am not aware of any, but I can't say for sure that.
Because the default then would be, if they didn't if they didn't appeal, the default would be then they'd be in their face-to-face homeschool unless they chose to go somewhere else.
Correct, because they were already enrolled in our schools. So
Yeah.
they were just, so we have them kind of on the books. So they would have had to officially
Okay.
yes, go another direction.
So they're online, and what's the role of the Mid-City principal since she does not have control of any of the teachers because they're all AEA teachers?
So things like what's the orientation? Who do I call when I need to know how to reach out to Edgenuity? Where does this appeal go to? So for 114 kids divided by 30, now you have 30 different principals trying to handle their 3 to 5 kids, and the message becomes disconjoined, and one principal, well intended, may have different information than the other. So it allows for one centralized place to, this is my roster of kids within this alternative learning center. Yeah.
But she doesn't direct any of the AEA staff. I mean, she can't say to them, you need to call this parent or this student because they're not attending, or.
So we will have online learning coordinators, coordinator at AEA, or excuse me, at Mid-City, and student support liaisons at Mid-City. So she will have staff designed to support families. And not splitting hairs here, we are in a consortium with the AEA to get kind of discounted pricing through Edgenuity. They're Edgenuity teachers, not AEAs. I'm just for your clarification. So they were Iowa certified teachers, but they actually work for Edgenuity, not for the AEA.
So are they considered Iowa teachers?
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting IPERs and all of that?
I don't know that. Yeah, that's an edge question, I suppose.
Anyone else?
Good question.
Director Potts.
This $356,000 is we're paying that out of where? General fund?
Sorry. Keep going. ESSER for now. So last year, we had 1,000 students, and so the price tag was considerably more. So now that we've established this criteria, we do have this year and next year, if we're going to continue to play with ESSER, to find it. But once that's done and it goes to general fund, those 100 students will have a very direct impact on our staffing numbers, of course. And so we have from now until, 24-25 school year, to get a real solid, before it starts coming out of our general fund, a real solid model for this. Whether that's with Edgenuity.
Do we receive full state aid for these kids? Because this is, if I did the math right, it's like $3,100 a kid.
Right.
Well, it's $31.2280 a kid. I don't know, how does that compare? I don't know how that compares to the 13,000 kids we're educating in person, but it seems like a lot of money for 114 kids. And do we have any other ancillary costs? Is this the whole total bill, or you talk about some administrator and is there a secretary involved? Is there, obviously there's no transportation, but I mean, is
technology? Yeah.
Are any of so there's costs above this. Is that itemized anywhere?
So currently,
I guess what I'm saying is it conceivable that our cost per pupil to do online exceeds what we are received from the state, and then we'd be better off saying.
I hear the question, and is it conceivable? I suppose if we weren't conscious of the fact, it is possible. Now, currently, Kevin, I lean on you, our per pupil in the state of Iowa is approximately?
Our per pupil is approximately 7,400 and something. We're going to be generating a little over $800,000 on these kids. This is a little bit less than half just on the Edgenuity piece. We won't be spending the other half on all the stuff talking about, Bruce. We'll be spending some. We'll have some staff, but not near to that difference. So we'll be coming out not overspending what these students generate.
Director Potts.
So to piggyback off what Ben's saying, the years that we have to figure out is exactly the dollars that these students generate. What does that programming look like? And then we are going to start setting our own parameters on how to staff that. It's very similar to the old open enrollment dates and things like that, to make sure that they're not costing us 10 grand more. And if they're because we this is something we're constantly monitoring to make sure that it's not costing us more dollars. Now the cost of their Chromebook and things of that nature, that would be a great information, and it would be good for us to itemize the other things on there. But the cost of the student success liaisons, the people that are kind of managing their caseload managers online, those dollars would be offset by the other portion that Kevin's talking about. And so it fluctuates so much because of COVID. We don't have okay, the last 5 years, this is what this has cost us. So we really only have 2 predictable years to figure it out, this year and next year. I believe our system, I'm very proud of the system they put together to determine whether or not online works for you. And if they don't want to do that, they do go to Iowa Online, and they do go to other school districts that offer that and open enroll right now. So if we didn't have this program, it would be all of those students would be in another school district right now. Our open enrollment numbers would be up from that. So the dollars that,
Or they decide to come to school.
or they would decide to come to school. Yes, they would.
Do we do any, do these students involved, I'm sorry, not the ones that are drop in, drop outs, okay? Because I'm assuming there are some that drop in and drop out. They drop in and they drop out, right? But those that are permanent in, is there any way we monitor their progress, that they're actually learning?
So that is what the student support liaison and online learning coordinator will be designed to do, in addition to the teachers that we are paying for, but they aren't our teachers and we don't communicate with them as much. So that's why we have that staff there as well.
Okay.
I had some of the same questions that Bruce had. Now, when you talk about the liaison, is that included in this 356,000? So that'd be an additional cost then. Okay. Kevin, when we have to phase out of the ESSER funds and we have to have it on out of our general fund, how are we going to manage that and not dig ourselves a hole after a while?
What we will do is we will have a separate account set up for online learning, just like we would for a building. So we would associate people or parts of people that are dedicated to online learning and move their salaries into that, so you can see exactly how much each student generates, but you also see how much the exact program costs. So if 3 SSLs are assigned to here, all 3 of those SSLs will be charged to that account. And so we'll be able to tell what the cost to that program is exactly.
So we'll have a separate line item for that only then?
Correct.
Okay. And so do you think that from a financial standpoint, that is going to be feasible?
Yes.
Okay. The other concern I have is, for some of these students, I'm not sure if we're doing them any favors from just social aspect. When kids aren't involved with classmates, I'm concerned that we're doing them a disservice. I understand, Superintendent Schneekloff, what you're saying as far as if we don't provide it, they can go to the Iowa online learning. are we just doing this? I guess we are. We're doing this for the dollars coming from the state, basically. Then.
Well, I think this board charged the administration with finding what do we believe in, and so the team put together. Okay, you have to have good attendance. You have to be earning credits. You have a bunch some have tos, and we can live with that. So if you choose to apply online, it's not working for you. We want you to come back, and you choose to open and roll out. That's what we can live with, because it's been obvious that you're not successful online. You need to come back, and so to kind of find the balance of that, because we believe the same thing. And some students are very successful online for many different reasons. So that's kind of how we decided to strike that balance with that. When our legislators voted to make us more competitive, this is one of the byproducts of it. We have to be competitive with some of our students need this. And I'm not. You're going to ask me what's the best form of education? It's face to face with a teacher in a building, live, 100%, all day long. And I think this is a byproduct of that. And I applaud our board for pushing this district to put in place rules and regulations that we can stand by, saying, yes, this is what we believe in. Ben, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I was going to say, Director Postian, is I don't think this is just a dollars and cents. In my experience with the people that have been applying, whether or not we necessarily agree with it, there are families that are saying, my child, anxiety. I mean, there are a lot of reasons that a family is choosing to do this. And I guess I don't feel qualified to make a parenting decision for 14,000 students.
My concern is just, when these kids get out in the real world, how are they going to cope in the real world if they're not, involved with other students? But, I totally understand where you're coming from as far as, providing a need and that. One thing I guess I would like to see, if some of the people salaries are not included in this 356,000, I would like to see a bottom line figure that says, okay, this is what it's going to cost us when you take into consideration all staff and everything. I want to know what the bottom line dollar is. And
Dr. Condron.
Could you explain what our switching policy is? I mean, when can they go in? When can they come out?
Mm-hmm. So no more going in this year unless there's an appeal in that's being addressed right now. Until second semester, we're going to give one opportunity to flip-flop. And that was done with input, like I said, from stakeholders in the buildings, like when is the right time to come back and forth. And after a lot of deliberation on the pros and cons, we landed on we will allow for one opportunity. They have to give us plenty of notice so they can finish up their coursework. The majority are secondary kids. We want them to get their credits. And then if they needed to flip, but it's just a one-time opportunity. Correct. Now, yes. What I stopped myself from saying, Director Klein-Jerome, was there are cases through the appeal where it was like, man, this is dicey, but you are the parent. So what we're going to do is kind of a probationary. We're going to watch. And if you're falling off, we're going to have you come back. Because we don't want to say, well, 3 months from now. So that's why I hesitate when you said either way, because if the school really wants to pull them back, we're gonna want to pull the trigger on that sooner. But as far as a change window, just once, halfway through the year.
President Gosa, did you have anything to add?
I just wanted to say I think it's awesome that you guys were able to put something together on this. You are trying to meet students' needs. Not every student's cut out to be in a classroom, just like not every student's cut out to go to college. And I'm glad we're starting to break those mindsets. Some kids are going to be more successful that way, some are not. I'm glad there's things put in place to kind of monitor that. Um, just families have different needs, and I'm glad we're able to kind of meet that. Their kids could be involved in competitive things that this is a perfect opportunity for them to still get an education while pursuing their dreams and stuff. But I do want to thank you all for putting the work into this. And I agree with Director Posh, and I'd like to see what the bottom dollar cost is on everything. But otherwise, I definitely support this. Thank you.
Just for clarification, Mr. Driscoll, there's already been the cutoff for this coming school year, so no more students are subject to be added.
Correct. The cutoff was actually a month or so ago, and then the only ones we're addressing are the appeals, and it's on an individual one-on-one with the building principals, the ILD, and the family. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And as I said earlier, if there's any additional information that you're needing for clarification on this, please check with Superintendent Snickloff so you can get your answer prior to the vote. Moving on to item 11.04, ISB bylaws amendments and the choice of the delegates.
Yeah, I can speak to this. This item came up at the assembly last year with some conversation and was narrowly defeated. Since that time, as you've read through here, additional information has come to light upon the national organization. Its financial status is shaky. Its service responsiveness has decreased, and the dues are $68,000 a year. The amendment that they're talking about here simply changes the wording in the bylaws of the Iowa School Board Association from it being mandatory to join this particular several national organizations, this particular national organization, to saying it is voluntary. The board of directors can choose to join. Okay, so it's simply making it permissive as opposed to mandatory. The last time around, I voted in favor of the amendment to make it permissive, that they give the board of directors discretion to decide if they want to join this national organization or another national organization.
Director Beck.
So what we are, if we send a delegate, when we send a delegate to this, what the vote is on is just the language of making it optional to be a member of the NSBA. But there's some other information in there about a different association that the IASB plans to join. That would be a separate.
That would be a different kettle of fish. I mean, that we're not voting on that. The September 23rd meeting,
it's 13th, I think.
Is simply to make joining a national organization discretionary on the part of the board of directors of the Iowa School Board Association. Okay. They have, in additional information here, they've talked about that second organization, and they provided information on what states have associated themselves with that other organization, right, and what states are still with the older organization.
Yeah. Would you be willing to be the delegate?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Vice President.
I was just getting ready to call on you.
I would like to, when we got to take action on this, move for Director Potts to be our delegate, but I would also move for Director Potts to be our delegate at the delegate assembly in November so we can do it all in one motion. If he's willing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the highlight of my life. I actually figured out how to vote on my phone the last time. Yeah, it was.
Any additional discussion on that? Just for an informal poll around the room. Are you okay with that, Director Kleindron? Director Poston? Director Beck? Director Gordon? And I too am in favor of that as well. Thank you. Any additional discussion on this? All right. 11.05, Director Beck.
This is the second discussion on all of the policies you see before you. Are there any comments or questions? If so, please bring them forward now. Otherwise, we will be voting on these at our next regular meeting. Director Gordon?
Yeah, policy 307, the communication channels for complaints. I know that I've mentioned this before. I, for the most part, agree with the communication channels. However, I do feel like there are some instances where this is not in the best interest of the transparency of the district. So, being a former employee, I've seen firsthand that it's not always feasible for people at the teacher, para, support staff level to get their concerns heard. And if that communication channel is to go first to their principal, a lot of times that won't happen for several reasons. One, the principal is in meetings a lot of the time or dealing with behavior concerns. They're just not always available for what teachers feel are serious things, but the principal may not feel that way. Also, the principal is in a position where they often feel they need to impress their ILD or their superintendent and their chain of command, and so they won't bring what they feel are petty concerns. They'll say, nope, it's fine, just keep doing what you're doing. And there have been, in past years and present years, concerns about, I don't want to say like alliances because that sounds kind of reductive, I guess, but friendly relationships between principals and their ILDs, which then prevents serious concerns from skipping, like from going through the entire pathway, from getting further on, from getting resolved at the levels that they could be getting resolved at, because they, people know that their chain of command is principal first, and then if the principal doesn't do it, then go to the ILD. Well, I've heard over and over, I can't go to my ILD, they're buddy-buddy with our principal. And that's a problem to me. There needs to be some kind of channel where teachers and support staff can get their concerns, their very valid concerns, heard and handled without feeling like they're going to be retaliated against. It's that same reason why we don't have a lot of staff members come and talk at board meetings or send us emails with their names attached, because that's a real concern. There is real retaliation that happens at the building level. And I hate to say that. I don't like that, but I want it to change, which is why I'm bringing that up. And that is my concern with the language of this policy. And I understand that, ISB has a policy similar or whatever, and we have to follow that for code. But I would like to see it modified in some way so that the staff that is doing the most work at the building level with the students has that channel to get their problems solved, especially as we're seeing so many staff leaving, not just our district, but, nationwide. So that's all.
Okay, so this, as I read it, this is largely for non-staff, so parents and community members, right? Versus staff. And I do know that we generally want people to follow these patterns so they're not immediately, going up here. But I understand your concerns. Would it be maybe would you be amenable to making sure that this is named for the public or for, and then having something separate for staff instead? I mean,
I would.
because really, as it's written, this is generally parents and other members of the school district community. It doesn't directly apply to teachers and staff themselves. So, I could see making a case for having a separate, mode of communication for that.
It does say in number 5, it says, if it's not resolved, steps 1 through 4 within the discretion of the board to address complaints from the members of the school district community. So that, to me, says that this policy, I realize that the first sentence doesn't make it sound that way, but number 5 does make it sound that way.
Okay.
So I would be amenable to 2 separate policies where we could lay that out separately, or rewording something, but as written, I think it's too rigid.
Okay. Director Potts, you look like you had something to
I
say.
did, 2 thoughts. One, we have procedures in place that we provide staff when it comes to harassment and a variety of other workplace instances. And I'm wondering if we don't have something in administrative regulations that may address some of these other concerns. I don't know that.
Yes, there is on the website. It's called grievance procedure. So it gives you the steps of starting. First, you always want to try and resolve the situation at the lowest level possible. But there's a 401.47A admin reg on the grievance procedure. And then it does go into the escalation process, because that's part of my department as well as the equity. There is an online complaint form. People don't always feel comfortable going to their principal, so they do come and submit a formal complaint form that way.
So maybe what we can do is put in language that says for staff and provide a cross-reference to that policy with the online complaint form. Jamie, does that, you said it's 407?
401.47A. And then the procedure is also out on the website under equity.
So maybe if we put in language in this policy that cross-references that for staff. Right, yeah, it's listed down there, but maybe a sentence that says employee complaints refer to something else. Director Klein-Jerome, you look like you are about to say something.
I think my battery's dying. I don't see, though, a complaint as the same thing as a grievance, because a grievance in my world was if you violated the contract, then there is a way to, step through it. If I have a complaint, that isn't necessarily going against the contract. So I'm not sure that.
I think that this title on here should be changed because it is a complaint process. The grievance procedures are set forth in each of the individual collective bargaining agreements. So I think this naming convention is old. So I do think that that's something that should be changed. Because you are
grievance
correct.
Should be in the title of this.
No, grievance should not, because a grievance procedure is set forth in the collective bargaining agreements.
Right.
You're correct.
So it shouldn't be tied together. And the other thing is, I think in that first line, it does address, that are concerned to parents and other members of the school district community. So they are saying this is the path you follow if you're a school district employee. As in a grievance, though, if it affects lots of people, I don't have to start at my principal. I can jump way ahead. And I think maybe that needs to be included, that if this isn't just concerning me, it's like lots of people, there's a way to jump over some of these steps. And I think that could be incorporated in there.
So should the policy committee then revisit this at the next Wednesday at the policy committee meeting, maybe, and figure out what the best way to go about, whether we need a separate policy for everybody who's not an employee versus people who are employees? I mean, I'm sensitive to the concern. I totally understand. It's a tough thing to say because you do want general procedures and you want people to follow those general procedures, but you want them to know if they aren't comfortable with that there is an option. So maybe, Jamie, are you available to attend on Wednesday? I won't be there, but I'm sure you guys can handle it without me. Okay, so we'll bring that one back to the policy committee then. And 307. Okay. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
So is the general concern that if something nefarious is going on between buddies and a complaint's not being heard, what's my step to go above those people, essentially? Because I need to be heard, right? Okay.
I also don't think though, like jumping a step, I would not like it if you passed the principal up and he had no idea, he or she had no idea what your complaint was, and you just went to the next level. So I think they really need to address it. And if you don't take care of my complaint, then I go to the next step, and I don't have to say to the principal, well, I'm going to the next step. But I did the right thing by going to them first so that they know this is a problem. Now, if they do nothing about it, okay, then I go to the next person. Don't do anything, go to the next person. But don't blindside people and they like, I didn't know this was an issue or a problem. So.
Yeah, I can see that as well, because they may not know there's a problem or that the person's not comfortable talking to them if you skip over that level. Yeah. All right. Well, let's send it to the policy committee and see if we can't come up with a way to word it to make sure that people understand that what we're trying to say here, if that's okay with you guys. Okay. All right. Director Gordon, you okay with that? Okay. Any questions on any of the other policies that are here? Director Poston?
Policy 306, succession of authority to the superintendent. Superintendent Snakeoff, are you comfortable with this? When I read the board will appoint an acting superintendent to assume the responsibilities of the superintendent, is that what you really want, or should there be something specifically in place for that?
So this policy to me is in an absence of a long-term absence, so in an issue that we have seen in the past. And I believe that states that is exactly what's occurred in the past. If I am sick for a couple of days, couple of months, we have a system that's worked out. And as you saw when I was on vacation last couple Mondays ago, Jamie stepped in and did that really well. If it becomes longer than that, and it becomes probably something that's semi-permanent, then I would say that the board would do that. So I am comfortable with this. I think our administrative, what the school board's been asking me for is an administrative regulation around this. And so what we've arrived at is that we would rotate that between our cabinet members. The school board recognized that our cabinet and wants our cabinet to have equal authority. There's a reason for the way they're paid, the way they're structured, things of that nature. And so identifying a clear structure between that also would increase responsibilities and things of that nature, so it would alter our structure. So we have basically a rotating basis. So if I'm gone, who's available, who's willing to do it? Are there certain things coming up in that week? So that's what we have worked out as a cabinet. And so this, I believe, is a safe fail in case I don't want to talk about some of those reasons, like I go to the hospital for a month again. That would be something that we would work out internally as a cabinet. And then this would be more of those long time instances that we actually faced in the last 3 years. So yes, I am comfortable with that. It's different than if I'm gone for a week. Does that help?
Yeah, it sounds like you're okay with it. I'm just thinking from a board member standpoint. So this situation comes up. How are we as a board going to vote on this? I mean, are we going to nominate people, and what's the process going to be? To me, I'd like to see something more something more cast in stone, but you know, I can go either way.
Madam President. Well, in the past, there's been one time where we've done what I've been on the board is that the board gets together and we have a conversation and we select somebody to act as the acting superintendent, and you reach consensus.
And at this point where this is enacted, this is very awkward for me to talk about, by the way. When this is enacted, the attorneys will be heavily involved in ensuring the board is lockstep.
Which we're not.
I think Jamie's already, got it since she took over. So it's your.
Yeah, but what Director Potts said has happened in the past because by law, to be a superintendent, you have to have a superintendency, and so the board can call a special meeting. The president would get notified. The board would call a special meeting and find out who's qualified to fill in an interim position, and we have then voted on it. But before that can happen, there may be somebody who needs to run the district, and the system that we have in place now seems to be working pretty well. So I do understand the concern for, maybe things change in 5 years, but then the policy can change if necessary. So, all right.
Next policy, please.
TJ's done with this one. Anything else? Oh, Director Gosa, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
All right, then we will see these again at our next regular meeting to vote on. Minus 307 because we're taking that back to the policy committee, and we may, depending on what comes of that discussion on Wednesday. Oh, sure, Director Poston.
On policy 600 goals and objectives, a lot of things in here are similar to our philosophy. Can those two be combined?
Yes. So this is more of a placeholder. It says the series is devoted to goals and objectives. This is a template that came from IASB. They provide two options. We talked about it last time, choosing option 1 or option 2. It does overlap a little bit. We can certainly provide this to tag as part of our discussion of the educational philosophy. The policy committee could certainly discuss whether we even need this policy. That's fine. We can bring that back to the policy committee as well. If the policy committee is okay with that, Director Kleinstrom? Pardon? Okay. All right. Then we'll pull that one back and see if it's one we even need, because we definitely don't want to have policies that are repetitive or not necessary. So, anything else? And I'll make sure Tag gets a copy of this 600. Okay, now we're done.
Thank you, Director Beck. Administrative reports?
None at this time.
Board reports? Board requests, I'm sorry. Okay, reflections. Let's start with President Gosa.
I didn't get to hear the first bit of the meeting, so I missed the presentation. So my highlight of the night was Director Potts educating us on the ISB stuff. So thank you for that, Bruce. That's all I got.
Okay, Director Gordon. Director Gordon.
I did really enjoy the presentation from the Wildwood, Camp Wildwood. I had never heard of that before, so that's very cool. But I also wanted to reflect on how cool I think it is how we all come together to like make good decisions and make hard decisions. You know, when we have differing opinions on things, we're able to talk them through and come together on something that makes sense. So I really value that.
Dr. Potts.
I think the reflection is how uneventful the meeting was, in terms of, we did our work, we did our job, we discussed what we were supposed to discuss, we were succinct, and we moved on. And I think that's just a mark to how we've created a functional, balanced operation as a board.
Dr. Klein-Drone.
I agree. I think we're having good discussion. We don't just slide it past us. We, express our opinions. We get to some in-depth discussion on all these topics that are important to the district.
Dr. Foster.
I agree with the last two.
Director Beck.
That was the fastest, most productive mission statement production I have ever seen. So thank you to TAG and thank you to the board for, it took us 2 workshops and that was it. And that is, I think, fantastic. And nobody blew their top over the placement of a comma or a period. So awesome. And then all the other stuff too.
Superintendent Nichols.
I echo everything that's been said. In front of the meetings, people are calling, asking questions, sending emails. That's very valuable. And I see the communication that is occurring at the board table is very valuable. I also see a cadence that's occurring. We're establishing our priorities. We're sending those priorities on. We're getting in the rhythm of going to our conferences and being prepared for them, and that's incredibly important.
Okay, again, I echo everything that's been said. And one thing that I would really like to emphasize is our action items. I really appreciate our new structure where we go through all of the items where when it's time to vote on them, we can just kind of jump right through them without a whole lot of additional discussion. Whereas we've had that time to hear the presentation, we've had that time to follow through with superintendent and various cabinet meetings or members to get the answer that's required, to not ponder through them when they come up on for a vote, and we can just kind of go through them. So it may seem like we're rushing through them, but it's been some time that's put into the answers in order to come to an agreement that we can vote on. And I just thank everyone for taking that serious and going through and getting the information that's needed for the vote. With that, Director Potts.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We call this meeting to a close. Thank you.